as people are arriving, let's go around and hear from everyone. It's like, what would you like from today? So we can all together do our best to give each of us what we're wanting. How about Kelly? How about you? What would you like today?
A sense of belonging, peace, connection, friendship. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Discoveries. Um, yeah.
So dear. Thank you, Kelly. Isn't that nice as we hear what aspects of Kelly would like from our time together? We'll just keep going around as people are arriving. Nina, hello. What brings you here today?
Hello.
What would you like today?
Hmm. I guess the word that's coming up is exploration and around making room for all the parts in a moment of challenge and just gratitude to be with other people who appreciate this work and have a place to talk about it because it's a big part of my life. So, yeah, thanks.
Great. Nice. Okay, to all of that, Nina. All of that. All of that. Thank you. And then, wow, we have San Francisco is like, oh, like look at that. Look at that background. It's like we have it's San Francisco. Yes, that's
Yeah.
brought to us.
Yes, it is. And you have the Force Tower there in the background, and you have the Transamerica building. Um, yes, and I feel like I want to be a little fly on the wall. I just flew in and I did more than, trust me, more than the 20 minutes of research on your website. And I help people with addiction. And so I'd like to learn even more about IFS and just to be part of the process and to connect with you
Great.
and learn more. So
Great. So a little bit of fly on the wall for first time, and there's from having visited the website, there's a sense of what's going on, and my guess is from what's your name?
Christina, pardon me. Yes, I'm watching this
Christina.
Smart Recovery Sweden. Little Sweden, little San Francisco. Yeah,
And
we're
just as we,
international.
as Christina shares and introduces herself, as we there's also there's one level where we're just doing the words together, and there's the other level of the shared being, like what we can somatically experience and feel. Like, what do you get as we're connecting with Christina here?
Well, I get that I usually like to be prepared and I like to know things, and I feel that I don't know very much about IFS other than the very basics. And so I feel that and then I read your disclosure or your warning or whatever you call it, and saying that you should know a little bit about the process before you enter in. And so I'd had a lot of course, feelings around that because I feel like I don't want to get in anybody's way. And so that's what I mean is that I'll kick back, I'll hang out, and if I may, just see what goes on here. I'd be so honored.
Right. Well, Christina, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. How was that for everyone hearing Christina? Was there just a dearness in hearing these aspects of Christina? The one that's like, I don't want to detract from anybody. I'm new at this, and I like going into another part. I like going into things where I really kind of understand. I know the music, I know the dance, and just, as we hear these aspects of Christina, of course, isn't there a dearness that we feel dearness towards them? And then can we all find a resonance in our own systems for these parts? Like, this is part of our game. Like, we're gonna just be like Anne was saying, the sense of play, discovery, exploration, and maybe some fun in this as we explore. But there's another level that my exploration is, how can this be like how can the healing of our system and what we call self-abidance, like knowing this intrinsic peace and love and fulfillment that's here, how can this journey to that, or becoming more intimate with that and healing our system, be like learning to ride a bike as a kid, or learning to play a sport, or learning to cook, or learning theater as a kid, where there was a flow and play and lightness to it. And so part of the aspiration is that that's what we get to do today with the 6 of us. And that, but underneath that, there's a lot, if I'm doing my job right, there's a lot going on. For example, just as I invite us to see if we find endearment towards Christina's system, towards her parts, towards what she says, it's often easier to welcome and love others' parts than our own. And so there's a usefulness in that. And then there's a sense of when I invite you to see, oh, can you find parts like that? The one that doesn't want to detract from anybody else. Can you find that in your own system? And then it helps us know, wow, I'm not alone. There's a sense of this connectedness that Kelly speaks of, belonging, connectedness, connection, being in this together, and that we can find that through our parts, even parts that might be really weird, like, or really sound really awkward, like, gosh, I'm feeling really, for Sid, if there's an awkwardness here, I'm feeling awkward, uncertain what I'm going to say, I'm a little nervous. It's like, we can all find that nervousness. So I know nervousness. So, and then we have Debbie, who's been exploring and playing with me forever in this, and she and I have had great fun. Debbie, what does Debbie want today?
Yeah, I just want Sid, I want to see you and everybody else who showed up. And yeah, I'm just open, and just a sense of community, I think, more than anything.
Thank you.
It's also like I'm a little just waking up, so my brain's not working 100% fast.
Debbie is on the West Coast in the US, and so well, so is Christina drinking her coffee. It's early there.
Yeah. But
yeah,
so, I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. So as we start with that, when Debbie speaks of connection and community, notice for all of us, is there something different now than 7 minutes ago when you were by yourself? Does something change when there's a group of these 5 of us with you? And for your parts, what is it for your parts when there's a connectedness? Perhaps there's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of a shared resonance. What happens in your system? Does something relax? Your parts relax a little bit. Oh, I'm not alone. Oh, I'm being heard. Oh, I'm being seen. What occurs there? And as we dive in, I'd like to do my housekeeping, because we have new people with us today, and just take 1 minute for that. I am not a psychotherapist. I work as a mediator. And so this isn't necessarily the IFS of psychotherapy. And for me, it's more friends and colleagues exploring together. And can I get a thumbs up if everybody's good with that and being responsible for their own journey today? Yay! And Christina really loves it. And then you'll see I have the recording going on, and I always do that. But this is the only image that will ever be recorded and shared is mine. However, the audio that you share could be shared. And so, again, sometimes I share this electronically so others that can't come can get the benefit of what we do. But only my image is shared, but your audio could be shared. But Effortless IFS is very different from other workshops because we don't go so much into the story of the parts. We don't go into the history and the difficulties of the parts. Instead, we try to go a little deeper and hear what's being longed for and help our system find that what's being longed for can be found right here through our very intrinsic nature, which we call self. So there's no need to go into stories that might be uncomfortable. And if you do, and my preference is if you don't, but if you do and you regret it at the end, just let me know and I can delete it. But it's a bit of a hassle, but just let me know that, because I'm wanting everyone to feel safe here and feel nurtured and cared for. And so if you're good with that this might be shared electronically, if I can get a thumbs up, please. Awesome. I'm going to start with a very radical statement by Eckhart Tolle, and just to see where it takes us. Because right in IFS, there's just parts or self, right? We call this beingness, the sky that's always here, self. And then we call the thoughts, feelings, or sensations the weather parts. That's it. That's the whole story. And so Eckhart has this line, and he says, nothing out there will ever satisfy you except for temporarily and superficially. But you might need to experience many disillusionments before you realize that. What do you hear with this? And then what we're going to focus on is how do you find fulfillment, satisfaction inherently in your being? And this is what we call self. This is what we call self in IFS. And in classic IFS, they have the 8 C's for it, like calm, compassion, connectedness, clarity, creativity. But we expand beyond that. Well, how do you know fulfillment that's here? And what's your word for it? And I'm just going to pause for a moment, because some of us might have parts that come up. It's like, what do you mean there's not satisfaction and fulfillment from experience? Like, I love being with my partner, with my dog, with my child. I love work. And when I get from work, I love it when I get a new car. I love going for a jog. We include all of that. And what we're going to look at right now is self, beingness for each of us. What's intrinsic for you? Is there fulfillment found? Is from presence? Is it peace? Is it, well, there's love here, there's tenderness. What's your word for it? Or is it connectedness, belonging, play? And is it possible that it can really be causeless? That it's not contingent on experience? That it's just here? So what we're interested in is not anything I'm saying or what Eckhart says or Dick Schwartz of IFS says. What we're interested in is what you find, how you know this that we call self. And all the spiritual traditions, they talk about it in different ways. I love the image of the sky that's always here. That self is always here. It just gets obscured by the clouds, by the weather. What is the sky for you? So maybe let's go around quickly and hear that. Then we'll come back around again and hear about the parts for each of us. And I'll try to go in the same order to keep it all simple and no surprises. And we started with Anne. Anne, could we jump back to you?
Yeah. So what was the question again?
What is this self? What is this beingness? What is this intrinsic okayness in you? What's the flavor of it?
I would say, and that's why there's a long gap, it's kind of wordless. It's beyond words. And then within that, there are lots of words because it's everything. So it's love and it's peace. And boundless. But when I look to the being, and I'm in that, then it's wordless. It's beyond words, it's beyond the mind. It's like peace beyond peace, beyond understanding.
Anne, let me just invite everyone in here. So as we're hearing Anne describe what this self and beingness is for us, when you hear these words she's sharing, what's most like that in your system? Peace beyond peace, peace beyond understanding. It's love. It's boundless. It's wordless. What's most like that, any of these in you? We're almost doing this Indiana Jones, exploring for the treasures of self together, and each of us get to lead the group in this. And then also, we can go through the mind and hearing these words, but then we can resonate differently as we hear Anne. We can feel this boundlessness. What do you feel? What do you resonate with? Anne, if you're having any difficulties finding qualities of self, we've got Anne Square. She's showing us this peace beyond peace, this boundlessness, love. If you can find that, you find a resonance. And this is sounding conceptual, just forget it all. Because what we're interested in is just playing with your system. Let's see if any of this, how this resonates with us, because in IFS, one of our 4 primary goals of Classic IFS, I called self-leadership, is just getting to know this that can't be diminished, this that's always here, this that we call self. Anything else you'd like to add, Anne?
Just that it's unconditional. So anything that plays on the movie screen of Anne's life, it doesn't really matter, because that comes and goes. It's temporary pain, temporary happiness. But this beingness, this self, no self, is unconditional. It never leaves. It's always the screen that the movie's playing on.
Beautiful. And so as we hear that from Anne, the sense that it's always here, notice, we call this updating in IFS, it's parts update. Do we all have some parts that might be like, yeah, I know that. Maybe there's just the spiritual part that's like, yeah, I know the screen is always here, peace is always here, okayness is always here. But then do we have other parts that are like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's crazy talk. That it's always here. This okayness is always here. So can we hear that in our own system? Notice the parts that respond, the voices that respond to what Anne's sharing. Or maybe there's a spiritual achiever that's like, whoa, that sounds really beautiful what she's saying. I'd like some more of that for myself. Can we hear our responses? And another one might be kind of critical, maybe self-critical. God, I should know this better. Or I should know this, that it's always here like the screen. What are the voices happening inside of you? And is it okay that those voices are here? Can there be a fascination with how life is playing inside of you? Thank you, Anne. Before we go to Kelly, let's just see, how's everybody doing? We want this to be gentle, and what Anne just shared with us, that was really some deep stuff. Does anybody have anything that's wanting to be shared? Everybody okay?
I mean, if it sounded a bit too out there, like as you say, it's the sky, but the parts are like clouds, not bad clouds, but just clouds. And sometimes I might have a part that's shouting so loud that I can't even see the blue sky that's always here. So that's another side to it. It obscures the sky because it wants attention, that part of me.
Isn't this cool, hearing how it plays in Anne's system? Like, we're going to hear from each of us. What we're interested in is, how does this play in us? The peace versus the obscuration, the parts, and however you make sense of it. And that's just the IFS language. You don't need to use the parts language. Whatever your language is welcomed for this. And this is just Anne's. We're interested in how life is playing and expressing in you. So let's see what Kelly, what would you like to share?
Loving, connection, peaceful, everything, nothing. Freedom. Timeless. Like coming home.
Thank you. So if those words Kelly just shared, which one touched something in you the most? You have this loving, connection, peaceful, everything and nothing, freedom, timelessness. What resonated with your system?
Did she say light coming on, Kelly? Light?
No, but that is actually one. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Reading a lot into this. But yeah. I like that.
Light coming
He
on,
did say
light coming on.
coming on now. He did say
Did
light
I?
coming on.
Yeah,
Oh,
light.
sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I said too.
Oh,
Oh, I did say it. Sorry.
What do we do with that? I'm sorry, Christina?
go ahead.
Where do we go with that? We're exploring together. That's part of the game. Hopefully it's fun, like what Kelly was sharing, and it's like the enjoyment of what she's sharing. Then what do we do with that? Light coming on? Light coming on. And like, what arises in our systems? Parts are like, gosh, that's just a bunch of new age talk. That doesn't make any sense here. Or others like, whoa, I feel that, the light coming on, this being, this pervading light. Any comments to Kelly's, anything that's wanting to be shared before we move to Nina? Christina, anything? We're all part of this together. There's no, I'm new at this
Okay,
anymore. You're in.
Sorry, I'm letting it rip, am I not? I'm like, okay, I'll be quiet now. Sorry, it's too much fun. I get too excited.
That's what I'm saying. We just let it rip. Let it rip. We're all just playing together. Is there anything else that's wanting to rip before we go to Nina?
Oh, it's just awesome to be here. Thank you.
Nice. And before we go to Nina, just isn't it cool? Like, if we're with Kelly for a minute, like, wow, look, that's happening there. Like, what's it like inside? What's it like inside Kelly? Like, gosh, I'd like to visit there and feel all of that. Wow. Everything and nothing. What is that? Light coming on. What is that? Wow. Okay, so before we go to Nina, last question, just to take a little break for all of us. How are you? How are you? Can we just notice what's here? How are you? How are you? It's like, what parts are here? Oh, I'm not really understanding all of this. It's a little confusing. It's so much. Or I don't know if this really relates to my system. Or wow, part, this is exciting. This is exciting. I want to understand this better. Or like, wow, I can really relate to this. Like, what are the voices happening inside of you? How are you? What's here? What are the voices? Or maybe there's a vulnerability. Whoa, Sid's going to call on me and he might ask me some questions. What am I going to say? It's like a vulnerability. And just to notice the parts that are coming up in you. How are you? And what are they arising in? What's the space? We've heard from Anne and Kelly some words to describe what they're arising in. What's here right now? And how are you? Like, is there some okayness and peace, some connectedness, some love, some silence, some stillness? How are you? All right, that's a lot. And now join me in like, what's happening in Nina? Just as we look at Nina, like, whoa, what's her guess? Like how life is moving in her with parts and self. What's happening? All right, and Nina, what's the answer?
I just want to say I felt peacefulness when Kelly was sharing, so just wanted to share that. And for me, what's coming up is in response to what your question is like just serenity and release. The sense of serenity and release is what I feel. And when I heard Anne say, like, I know this may sound like out there or whatever, that wasn't quite the wording, but I find myself having to like qualify when I talk about parts with a lot of people in my life of like, this might be out there, this may sound woo, and it's like so nice to be in a space where I don't have to do that. And just a lot of gratitude for that. So yeah, just really
Nice.
serenity.
So what about that? First, for all of us, as we hear Nina speak about serenity, we hear her speak about serenity and like that's describing what's here for her. And we feel it like we're all like as if we're all tuning forks. If we're tuning in to the serenity in Nina, what's that like? What do we find? Like, oh wow, this serenity. I like this. I like that note of self, that note of being serenity. What's that like to let that be felt here? What's the somatic experience of whatever's most like serenity, whatever that resonance is for you? What's it like to join Nina in this resonance? And then when Nina spoke of parts, and she's like, there's something that's kind of the appreciation for being able to just share what's here and not be like, oh, I can't really talk about my inner world in that way. What about this celebrate? What's it like for you if like your inner world is being celebrated and appreciated and welcomed? That we label as parts here, but however it works for you. But that everything is we're interested. Like if you can feel that as we talk about what's happening in Nina, ask you, how are you? It's really a question about what's here. And it's not a sense of, oh, that's a good part and this is a bad part. No, you can't bring that part here. You can't bring fear or anger here. It's really a fascination with what's here in you. Nina, some final words for what's going on there? Anything else?
I noticed when you started to talk and like touched on the serenity that like had like a judging part come in and be like you didn't like you cross-talked and you like commented on other people. I was noticing like a little critical part come in and like judge what maybe I had shared. So just sharing that.
Thank you. First, like look at Kelly. She's like, oh, like the sense of this judging part, the judging part. Oh my God. But how there's endearment. Do we all have that endearment towards this judging part? That's like, oh, you should have done it differently. Endearment towards that in Nina. And then how can we relate to it? How as we resonated with serenity, can we also resonate with that judging part? Like what's most like the judging part in us? It's like, oh, I should speak differently. I should do this. I should have my hair differently. I should whatever. The judging part. And then lastly, as we felt endearment towards Nina's judging part, towards her critic, can we find the same endearment towards ours? Is it possible that can we glimpse the innocence of the critic? As Dick Schwartz of IFS says, there are no bad parts. They're all here doing their very best for us. And we see how even the critic who's saying, should, you're wrong. You did it wrong. You should have done it differently. What's wrong with you? Can we taste the innocence of that? Thank you, Nina. So before we go to Christina, first, this is a lot, right? Some of us, it's like, whoa, this is a lot. And we might have a part that gets a little exhausted, and just notice what's coming up. Is there a part that's exhausted? Like, God, I'm trying to follow all of this, but it's a lot. And it's like, before we go to Christina, how are you? Just like, notice what's here, parts that are here. And then what are they arising in? What's the flavor of fulfillment, okayness, peace? Kelly's everything and nothing. Connectedness, love. Can we?
Yes. You're back.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry. That was weird. I think it was a Wi-Fi problem.
Sid, I don't think that ever happened before, did it? I mean, at least when I've been on.
That's the first time. I was just going on my phone to join you guys. But anyway, yeah, I was like panic. Oh my God, what do I do? Part that was like, So here we all are with our parts and with self, and maybe we're resting a little bit in this beingness that's here, this background, this okayness, this peace, this love, this connectedness. What's it like for our parts to rest a little bit in this as we rest in it? What's it like for our bodies to rest? Like for our parts to rest in this? Because Christina's about to take us someplace, and we want us all to get to just relax and be ready for the journey. Put your seatbelts on. All right, Christina, what you got for us?
Okay, I'm mute. Sense of self and awareness to me translates into what I call flow. So it's a state of being, a frame of mind that is just focused utterly on the here and the now. And I'm not even focused on the now because I'm so engaged and engrossed in what I'm doing in my activity that it's just flowing. And so I'm not even thinking about the time. The time is not an issue. And then when I catch myself, I don't know, has 1 minute gone by or has 10 minutes gone by? So being in a state of flow is the bomb. And I try to go to that space by engaging in these activities that I know will lead me there or are more likely to lead me there. And it's I mean, it can be described, I guess, as being completely in the now and present, even though, as I said, when you're in it, you don't even think about time. It's just like it's not happening because you're just inside of yourself and you're engaged, you're doing, you're connected. I think maybe can be called being connected to something, maybe to myself and to what it is I really want to do. And so I feel like that's but it's also connected a little bit to like I really want to be here. So it's a state of, it's a now, but it's attached to some quality of anticipation. Like I'm here and I'm liking it and I want to keep doing it. And that's all baked in. It's all built in all together. I don't know how to, it's not like I'm just sitting there hoping, oh, I anticipate in the future I'm going to get presents. No, it's just like the flow that is flowing forward as an anticipation. So I don't know. I'm trying to find my words to this.
If we pause for a moment, as Christine is as she's describing this. Oh, don't leave us, Christina. I saw the mute come on as she describes what she's calling flow. so present in the moment that we can't even the idea of moment doesn't even work anymore. The idea of time doesn't work. We're so here and now. Flow, it's the only place we want to be is here. It's like where we want to be, what we want to be doing. We are right in that. Does that word work for each of you, or do you have a different word for it? Flow. And would your description be like, wow, Christina just nailed it, that's it? Or would yours be different for your system of this? And how do you find this flow that we often hear artists and athletes speak of? In the sense when Christina speaks of, it's where I want to be, it's where I want to be. And we also find what obscures it, what takes us away from flow. We find maybe parts that might want something else. But hey, but what about tomorrow? What about fixing my car? What about my back hurts? Flow. And I got one more question that we're going to hand it. I'm going to hand it all back to Christina. One more question. When she talks about the now, it's just like we're here now. How do you make sense of that? This now. Sometimes some folks discern parts in self just about time. I think I forget if it was either Anne or Kelly used the word timelessness. Sometimes some folks used the sense of timelessness and time as discernment between self and parts. Almost like as self, we are so in the now that it's just now, it's presence. Time doesn't compute. And in that now is what Eckhart Tolle would say again, there's just fulfillment. There's an absence of lack here in this now. Like how does that translate for each of us? And the sense of being in time, because we can find parts that are focused when they have the sense of want, and it sometimes with that is a sense of the future will give me something. I will get something from the future, some kind of fulfillment, happiness, satisfaction. And it's great. We love and we welcome all the parts that play that way. Or there's a regret about the past, for example. They're working in time, and then there's self. That's the now. What's that for each of us?
It's a lightness of being. I like what if Kelly did indeed say light, that's a really good word for me. Yeah, the now feels light, and it's just like a state of now that's also, I want to, baked into that is this, I want to keep on being here. So I guess it's a state of anticipation, but it's not wishing I'm somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just thinking about the future, but it's just like, oh, I'm here and it's just wonderful. And this is where I want to be. And just the extreme simplicity of the activities that I'm engaged in is just, it's just sometimes just drinking my cup of tea and sitting in the couch and looking at something, or it's just so simple, reading something and then organizing my food, cooking. So it's just very, as you said, and maybe that's what Eckhart speaks of, that they're very superficial sort of satisfactions, but they're certainly very simple, and they're very everyday, and just an appreciation that maybe a little gratitude baked in there, that I'm just so happy for this here right now, this flow that I'm in, and it's just a really comforting, warm sensation without future tripping or going back into the past, which is guilt. Yeah.
Beautiful. How's that for each of us as we feel into what Christina just shared for us? as if there's an enjoyment of like, wow, that's so beautiful hearing her flow and how it is for her. But what if she's really pointing to our systems? What if she's pointing to you with this? And I was also hearing 3 distinct windows here. One is this word flow. And another one was now, the sense of time, being like fully present as the now. Another word she used was here, which is interesting in contrast to there, like space, sense of here. Just to notice if how this all plays in your system, especially the now, as Christina's describing, kind of just going and doing things in life, having a cup of tea, moving through life. But there's a sense of if we really are in this flow, or any of these 3 words, here, now, intrinsic in that, in self, is fulfillment. Just a sense of being fulfillment while we're having the cup of tea. It's very different. It's like we're not having the cup of tea in order to find joy, happiness, okayness. We are this. And then it's just expressing and moving as life. Any final words, Christina?
Yeah, like now, here, now, but the timeless now. Somebody said timeless. So it's now, but it's not attached to time because it's just words are traps and we have to choose a word, but the now doesn't figure into it because time doesn't figure into it. It's timeless because it is just a state of being right here, right now.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Before we go to Debbie, some of us might have parts that are like, wow, that's really beautiful what she was describing. That was really nice. But then there's the reality of my life. It's like, okay, now I'm going to work and now I've got this to do. I've got to take care of the kids. I've got bills to pay. It's like, great, flow, whatever. Maybe when I'm doing art or when I'm with my lover or when I'm playing a game of basketball. But and just if there's a part like that, like, can that be welcomed? And this was just Christina describing her system for whatever resonates. And there's no should in this group, and there's no, this is where we want to go. This is the underlying ideal here is this is a celebration of what's here in each of us. Perhaps even the celebration of the innocence, beauty, and perfection of who each of us are right here, right now, and all the parts of us. And we've just gotten to know Christina's. There's no should. Just notice that there's a comparison part where a critic comes up. And so before we go to Debbie, how are you? How's everybody doing? How are you? What's here? What are your parts? What are your 3 loudest parts right now? What are your 3 loudest parts? Maybe there's a boredness. Come on, Sid, let's go for a dive. Let's have some of that adventure and play. Let's do something real exciting. What parts are here? Is there a critic? Is there like, wow, I don't know if I understood all this. What do I do with it? Just notice the parts. And then what are they arising in? What is self for you right now? What's beingness? And as we notice within our own system, what is it in Debbie? What do we think it is in Debbie? What is beingness in Debbie? As we notice Debbie, and what are her parts going to be? Debbie, what's happening?
Yeah, I noticed tension in my jaw. Yeah, so, and this happens periodically in this group and with my life. Yeah, parts of me just like don't resonate with going to self first. You know what I mean? I mean, Sid and I have talked
Yes.
so many talks about this. So
let me just add something here. I want to suggest that we can go, it's just as good diving deeply into our parts. because I have this one's a little different today. We started with self, but I want to suggest that maybe Debbie can demonstrate that for us as far as sharing her parts that are here, and we can take a dive into parts together. Back to you, Debbie.
Yeah. So, so I had parts that were going, oh, I can't stand, I don't like this, or, I mean, I'm not it's nothing personal, but it's just like, I'm not connecting to my like presence, flow, anything, right now. Yeah. So, and then I had parts that go, oh, I just want authenticity. I just want humanness or something, talking about nothing personal about anyone, but this is just my.
Well, let's ask this, Debbie. So there's some tension in the jaw, and then there's
Yeah.
all about what's happening, and there's a part that says, I don't really like this. I don't really like this, or I'd like it to be. I prefer if it was different.
I prefer it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you hear that part? Where do we how do we hear where do we hear that part? Like, is it out to the right? Is it in your head? Is it in front of you? I'd prefer it to be different.
I think like my jaw, like I was saying, like, oh, I just want to, I feel it in my right here, in my jaw face. Like I wanted to, or no, this part says, I don't like this, or I want to somehow connect and I can't, and I'm not able to, or something.
Beautiful. So when we all hear this part in Debbie, I don't like this. I want to connect. I want something different. And we find endearment to this part. We appreciate the innocence of this part in Debbie. And then can we find the resonance? I want it to be different. I don't like this. Can we find that in a resonance in our own system? And then lastly, can we find the innocence in our part that's like that? Can we see the innocence of it? And Debbie, you mentioned some other parts too. It's like, yes, this wanting to, Sid, this doesn't really work so well for me today. I really like, the going to self, like I'm not finding the connection. I'm not finding the presence. I really just want to connect in authenticity. Like that voice, where do you hear that? Or your how you were saying it, where do you hear that, Debbie? Is it in the head? Is it in front of you? Where is that voice? Where do you hear it? Or if it's somatic, where do you feel it?
I think maybe a bit in my chest, like some contraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say that, like, when you read the quote by Eckhart Tolle, it was like, oh, that started me off. that just set me off, and like my parts went insane. It was like, oh my God. So that, I think that's what started my part, just satisfaction.
I wish Debbie was here at absolutely every single one of my groups, because she is like the check and balance on this thing to keep us deeply in our humanness. We can just appreciate that. Keep us deeply in a celebration of our humanity. What are you talking about? There's like, it's just finding it all from self. No.
Yeah, I mean, and can I just say that's like for me in my life, like there are certain times where I just feel like, even like Christina was saying, so connected and so like, but it's external, like I'm with a person or activity. And then I feel like when it's gone, which it always is, or, changes, then I feel a sense of loss, kind of grief, parts grieve. Oh, I really loved when I was with my granddaughter or whatever. So that's where
Yes.
I don't quite understand. Yeah, it doesn't resonate with me.
So let's see if we can each find the different, call these in effortless IFS, we call these different views, what Debbie's pointing at here. Like one view, which is what we were starting with Eckhart's quote, is the idea of discernment of self and parts, and getting really clear on the difference in the nature of self and parts, and then finding that we can find sanctuary in self. And it's like, and this is, they have spiritual paths that do this, like Advaita Vedanta, they do this called neti, not that, this. And it's all about the discernment. Byron Katie does that. Is it true to everything that arises, where we just discernment and we come back to self? Vipassana does this. And just, there's that, right? And then where Debbie's like calling us out on this, it's like, hey, but what about life? What about like the richness, the dearness, being with my grandmother, being with somebody? It's like, what about that? And this is another view when we can see the innocence and the celebration of our parts, the dearness of our parts. Like at first, often in spiritual paths, we do the not this, not that, because the system needs to learn the discernment. It really helps to have the discernment between self, between what Christina was pointing to, for example, flow, here, now. It's really helpful to become intimate with that. But you don't want to stop there. We don't want to stop just as, well, I'm blissful, I'm fulfillment, I'm okay. It's like, God, what kind of life is that? It's like, we want to be able to go back in. We want to be fully in this life and fully with our parts. But then just as I think Anne was describing how parts can obscure self. And that's just a phase when they can obscure. Eventually, like Debbie's describing, the parts just become alive. There's not the separation anymore, and we include it all. And just notice how that makes sense in your system. And how you might have parts right now that are like, God, I'm not really following that, or Sid, you're really complicating this. This is becoming really conceptual. Or just to notice what's coming up. And Debbie, where else? I'm going to take us on. We'll go on a little dive with all this. But Debbie, what else would you like to share about? Because it's such an important voice that you have in our exploration today.
Well, thank you. And I have parts that don't like to be like different, that want to fit in, that want to be like everyone else, belong, and that would give me a sense of like belonging. So it is like I have parts that are like, ooh, that's hard too. So nothing else. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Debbie. And then I want to invite everybody into this question. You notice how Debbie is kind of speaking up for her parts? How there's a sense of advocacy for her parts, like, no, this doesn't work for me. We want connectedness. We want this. We want to be seen. We want the fullness of life. I want to be heard. And she's like, and she has another part. It's like, why are you doing this? I just want to be connected and play and be like, But do we all have parts that would like to have Debbie here inside of us advocating for us? We have parts that are like, that aren't being spoken for, that are just kind of being railroaded a little bit. Can we relate to that, parts of us that we don't speak for? We're like, no, you need to behave, or just kind of push them down, or you need to just appreciate what Anne was saying, and that, or that Eckhart Tolle quote, there's Sid said it, he's the facilitator, that must be what's important. It's like, and the way Debbie's advocating for her parts, can we just appreciate the beauty in that? And like, to find parts in us that would like to be represented, spoken for, that would like to be seen and cared for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. So before we go on a dive, let's just see how's it? Nina, is there anything, what's bubbling? How's everybody doing? Nina, anything you want to, somehow I was just drawn to you to see if there was anything bubbling.
Yeah, no, I just appreciation for the flow and the awareness of judgment that breaks that flow for me, and then real appreciation for Debbie and her honesty about all that was stirring in her. All of it, and noticing feeling tired. And I don't know what that's about, but just noticed it. Just so, just happy. I feel like parts like happy to be here.
Mm. Lovely. Yeah, and the celebration of all, just like Nina was saying, it's nice to be able to share what's here, to speak about my parts.
Mhm.
And as she shared what's here, sometimes to say you're tired in a group is like, oh, Pa, like, oh, I'm not supposed to be tired. I'm supposed to be very interested, engaged, like loving every minute. And just this, just that. And so you're saying that also opens up more space for all of us to be authentic, just like what Debbie did, and honest with what's here. If it's truly a celebration of what's arising in us, the sense of it's been 55 minutes, hey, you know, it goes for an hour and a half. I think an hour is going to be enough for me, you might have. And, you know, and everything's welcomed here. And it's just to notice what's here for all of us. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything bubbling, anything that's wanting to be shared?
I do. I had a part come up after I'd shared, and other people were starting to share. And it comes up quite a lot, actually, this. So it's quite a good one. That said, it's not very clear at the moment, but it's like, it's critical, and it says, people think you're hard.
Wait, people what? Sorry.
People think you're hard, HARD. You're not loving enough when you're in that far out space, boundless space. You come across as hard and not humane enough, not human enough. So that part came up, and I'm kind of experimenting with this child part of me. So I had an image of this, putting this child on my knee and giving it a cuddle, because I'm experimenting with the two parts of hard mother, soft child. So I thought it might be something to do with that again, where the child is just, they're starting to trust each other. But in the past, the child would think the mother was too hard. Nothing to do with my children, it's my inner self.
Yes.
So that was quite difficult to have that come up again. They won't like me. They'll see my hardness. They'll think I'm hard. That kind of thing came up here.
I absolutely love what you're pointing to here. And I'm gonna have this idea that let's explore this in our little dive together. It's like the different flavors of this, where it feels hard and cold and maybe empty, and there's just spaciousness, emptiness. It's just versus the more of the nurture, love, a tenderness, a connectedness, and
Right.
intimacy. The spectrum of how this beingness, this self, how it can arise in each of us, even in the sense of flow, even in the here and now and the flow, where the flow can come from, there's just emptiness, or it can come from a fullness. Wow, everything is this love. I'm this love. I'm in love with everything, and just that whole spectrum. Anything else, Anne?
No, it's just that it's like exactly as you said. Sometimes it's wide and empty, but it also feels connected and loving. But sometimes it's just cold, I suppose, or it's been judged as cold by something.
And when it's being judged that way, there's this part of Anne that she's describing that's like, this is cold. What is it? What do we guess that part is longing for? Especially if it's like the child on her knee. What is it longing for? What is that part longing for in Anne? What would you guess? Longing for like being seen, loved, connection, care, tenderness. And as we hear that longing from that part in Anne, whatever you're hearing, what's most like that in each of us? What's most like what that part is longing for? If it's love, tenderness, connection, care. What do you find that's here intrinsically in you? And we'll dive a little bit more into this. I love where you're pointing us, Anne. Thank you. Anything else bubbling before we take a 10-minute dive together? Christina.
I just wanted to mention that, when Debbie mentioned being together with somebody, in this case, her grandmother, but it could be anybody, and then
Granddaughter.
granddaughter. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, my grandmother.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
And being right. It's yes, the flow is an activity. It's something that you're engaged, engrossed in. It's a passion. It's a hobby. It's being, doing, acting, and then and then and then also being so loving that, and then also when you don't have it, when that goes away, then feeling the loss and the grief, and then sitting, I mean, being with that, sitting with that, and then to kind of try to correlate it with the IFS, that to me, it seems like a reaction, an anti-reaction, and the bittersweetness of life, where, it's on a spectrum, and it goes from the bad to the good to the, and I'm not even so sure that is the spectrum, because I think it's different for all of us, but still, it's like, it just resonated with me, and then to see if I can find something that for me makes me more human and accepting of myself than when I accept my grief, and because it is the reaction, the anti-reaction, and how life kind of just goes in those waves. I don't know. Am I onto something here? I don't know. I can never really quite grasp the gist, but I'm just sort of like trying to paint a picture.
Yes. So when this grief and loss arises in us, we all know this, yes, grief and loss. That we might have a part that comes up. That's, oh, I don't want to feel this. Or gosh, how can we make this grief and loss go away? I just want to go back to flow or okayness, right? We might have a part that has a preference for that. And then there's the grief and loss. And can we find from this beingness, from what we call from self, from our nature, that self just is a sense of welcoming of what is. And grief and loss is here. Self doesn't, there's no preference to change it or for anything to change. It's just, oh wow, there's grief and loss. And then we notice the parts that might be like, oh, grief, I don't want to go through that again. Oh, it's. And then there's just a being with the grief and loss. And then it might even become an interesting thing. It's like, how intimate are we with this that's arising? How intimate is our system with the grief and loss? And just to go back into Debbie's world again, like we don't want to miss any of that. We don't want to miss any of this. Like the grief and loss, it's like we have parts like, are you crazy? I don't want to feel that. The grief and loss, gosh, this is beauty. This is art. Grief and loss, this life that we're living. That comes up here. How am I doing, Christina? How's this going?
I think you're expanding on it. Thank you. It's good. Run with
it. Okay. Anything else bubbling, Christina, for anybody else?
I've got a part that's here. Well, there's a few parts. Excited, happy. I've got a fixer part. I keep saying this is it. Really grateful that that I'm here and feel like I've got a way to love each and every beautiful part of me. When I've been trying to shut them up and get rid of them and not accept them and judge them, and it just feels so freeing, to see them parts, to know that they're the part of me and they're here to help, and it's just so freeing to be able to love them now and accept them. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yay. Thank you, Kelly. And as we hear Kelly share that, what's that like for us? And I'm gonna take us now into a dive in just a minute. But just what's that we don't want to miss the gifts here of what Kelly's describing. What's that like to resonate with that? And it's like, wow, there's freedom. They can be here. They can be welcome just the way they are. Like going back to Nina's theme of speaking for her parts, everything's welcomed here. All of life, the grief, the sadness, all of it. Welcome. Those parts are welcomed here. So let's take like maybe a 10-minute dive together where we'll just kind of go into this. And if it serves you, welcome to close your eyes, keep them open, whatever's works best. And just we're gonna try to bring it all together, everything that's being shared. It's like as Kelly shared, the sense of everything is welcome. All of the parts can be here. Which of everybody mute for just the next few minutes as well? What parts of you are here? What if this is a party? This is a party, a celebration for your parts. Maybe it's like a stage. Maybe it's a big room. Maybe it's like the galaxy and their planets, or it's a hot tub, or it's just a big party room. It's a stage, and like they're actors or dancers, or they're children. It's a party for your parts. What's here? What parts are here? Wow, we're throwing a party for you. All of you, anyone who wants to come, and no one needs to come. Parts can stay off in the shadows. They can stay on the side and watch. It's a party for your parts. Who's here? Who's like, yay, like Debbie's parts. Wow, I'm being seen. I'm being welcomed. Grief, loneliness, sadness. Those too are welcomed here. Ones that feel tired and exhausted. Those voices in you, they are welcomed at this party. Can you see them? How are you able to see like the party room, the space, all in one view? Does it help? Does it help to like zoom out a little bit, like zooming out? How does your system do this? Or is it more like seeing a stage? Are you able to see your parts? Or is it more like a big room that there's a party happening and I can see the parts? Wow, some of them are like having balloons. Other ones are really sad. Maybe some are dancing a little bit. Maybe there's not a trusting. Some of them are like, I don't trust this. I don't trust this. I know what happens. Life hurts. I trust and then I fall and it hurts and there's betrayal. I can't trust this. It's not safe. Those parts too, all are welcomed. And what's the space in you? What's the space of self? What's the floor? What's the room? What's the air? What's the space that welcomes them all? That is a space of welcoming. What is that? What's the quality of beingness that's just a yes to your parts? Is it a peace? More of a connectedness, like a maternal love? It's like some people call it Gaia, this paternal love, this Gaia, this welcoming. It just includes like the earth. What is self? Or is it more masculine? Is it more like clarity and knowing? Everything is welcomed here. Or is it more like what Christina was saying? There's just like this feminine connectedness, this flow, this sense of now, this nurture, this now, this presence. What is the space for your parts? Or is it more what the Buddhists describe, like an equanimity, a stillness, a silence? And then can your system be aware of the parts that we're throwing the party for, that are here? The party, the ones that are shy and the ones like, hey, let's dance, it's a party. Where's the margarita? And other ones that are critical and not trusting. As we can see them, like, can you be aware of 3 parts here? Like, what are the loudest three in your system right now? And can you see the others that are here? And maybe that's like the foreground, and the background is the room, the space, the stuff, the beingness that welcomes. And can your parts sense that they are being welcomed, that there is welcoming here, that they're not alone, that there's a presence here? Is there a sense that your parts are not alone at this party? That there's a host, there's a beingness that welcomes. And then as we're aware of these parts, and notice if there's a part that's trying to help. Oh, Sid's directing me to do something. I need to do this right. Like, let's say, notice that part, any kind of helper part, one that's trying, and include that too at the party. Wow, that one gets to be at the party too. And then as we're aware of these parts, as we maybe zoom out to be aware of them, see if you can at least be aware of, see if you can find two or three, at least two or three. And some of us, wow, there are like a dozen parts in the room, or the room's really full. And maybe for some, there's even a basement to the room for the parts that are kind of shy and still hiding. And everyone's included. And as we're aware of these parts, almost like you're in a restaurant and you're hearing all the people around you, but you're not really listening directly to them. As we're hearing our parts, what are our parts longing for? What are they longing for? Are there some, like Anna's sweet child that was sitting on her knee, that wanted tenderness? It wanted like a loving welcome, a nurture, a care. Or there's some like that Debbie was pointing, and they just want to be respected, appreciated, welcomed, included, honored. What are they wanting? What are your parts longing for? Are there some like Nina? It's just like, wow, we can talk about all this. We can see this. There's space for this. There's space for all of our parts. Everything that's arising is welcomed. Are they wanting welcoming? What is it that your parts are longing for? And as you hear that longing without doing anything, can you notice that that longing itself can evoke what's being longed for, or a quality like it, or something? As you hear the longing, I want to be welcomed, I want to be seen, I want to be cared for, I want to be nurtured. As you can hear that longing, like a child longing, notice that what is being longed for, what's most like that which is here now, this sense of welcoming, this care, this love. What is it that your parts long for? As you don't have to do anything, as we just hear them, what is the longing? Is it for flow? Is it for relief? Is it for ease? Is it for peace, love, connectedness? We really hear that longing. And what's most like that which is here now, inherent in you? What's most like that which is here? Last question. Can your parts feel that? And they feel some of what they're longing for that's here? And they feel that. And what's that like? Feel that here now. All right, that's a lot, I guess. That's a lot. And we're just going to gently come back together. But as you do, see if you can maintain this awareness as the eyes open, there's just a receiving. You can maintain this awareness of your parts. And the nice thing is you're not alone. There are 5 of us with you. Like perhaps your party room just got a whole lot bigger. All of us, this stuff together. And we've got like 15 minutes left to celebrate together. And maybe I'd love to, you can see, I'd love to go around and include everybody again. Like, what's this like for you? What do you find? And for some of you, it might be like that I'm just tired. I just have a part that was really tired and just wanted to lay down and go to sleep. And that's really what was going on. That is so welcome too. That's what we're interested in. And let's see, who would like to go first? Is anyone having something bubbling? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can go first because I feel, yeah, I feel just knowing this and acknowledging it, and having a deep sense, deep knowing that maybe it was always there, but now it becomes outspoken, and it becomes a thing that I can accept, that I have these various parts. It makes it so much easier. It's a tremendous liberator. That's how I feel about it. Feels light.
Thank you. All of these parts, this liberating, a lightness. Could it be that they're all welcomed? Like all these aspects of Christina, all these aspects of Anne, of Kelly, of Debbie, of Sid, of Nina, truly welcomed at the party. And we can, if it helps to label them parts, great, but it's not, whatever works for you. Just it's about celebrating this life and all the flavors in which it moves within us. Anything else you'd like to add, Christina?
I think it's just, yeah, it really gives me hope, anticipation. And if I can, when I'm feeling blue, I can just pull this out. It's a gift. It's a treasure. You said, who said we were going on a treasure hunt? But this is a little treasure, and I can give this gift to myself when I'm feeling blue, and then get that perspective, sort of, that it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Yay, Nina.
I really appreciated when you talked about the parts in the basement at the party. In the past, I've thought of my basement parts almost like Golemy. And when you just mentioned it now, they were more like the subversive, like kids in the basement smoking cigarettes and being like, yeah, we're not going to the party. Like, we're cool. They're playing music. It's like a little hazy down there, but like kind of fun, like, different than like the woohoo, we're happy and there's balloons. They were like, yeah, like F off, like we're just down here having a party. I know something about that made me smile. And like, I was like, yeah, like I appreciated that when you said that.
I love it. Don't you guys all want to go into the basement with Nina's parts? That sounds like, does that sound great? And then can we all relate to that? It's kind of the parts that don't want to do the right. Maybe they feel that way about this, all this. Wow, this is really, you're talking about some spiritual stuff, this being, this self, all of that. Like, we just want to have a good life, or just, I'm not interested in that. I just want to stay in the basement and we're through that. And it's like, but we all have parts like that, right? And can they fully be welcome? I love in Nina's system, she's celebrating them in such a fun way. What else you got for us, Nina? Anything else bubbly?
No, it just made me smile when you said that, thinking about those parts down there, like doing what they want to do. And that is a big part of me, like doing what I want to do. Like they're there and they're like, yeah, just so good.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you. Thanks for that gift, Nina. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Yay, Kelly.
So it's very maternal. So these parts that I've judged and got rid of and let go and not accepted are like little lost children. And some of them I haven't met yet. They're there, they're coming though. And the big self is like very maternal now, so they're all like coming. And I'm learning to welcome them, and yeah, and it feels really, really lovely to be able to do that. Really lovely. And I feel like some are like peaking up a little bit now. Yeah, and I can see them, and I don't have to be scared of them or thingy. I've got the little jealous part, and the little judging part, and the curious part, and the angry part, and so many little lost children, but they can all come. They can all come now.
Oh, Kelly. So what's that like for us as we hear Kelly speak this? So many lost children, some that I don't even know yet. So many lost children. Is it a problem? that we have so many lost children. Notice if anyone has a part that comes up that it's a problem that we have lost children, so many we don't even know yet. That's what comes. So many lost children. So if we find endearment towards these lost children in Kelly, what about in our own system? Can we all resonate with so many lost children? Ones that haven't been welcomed yet. Something that I don't even know yet. Can we relate to that? Like parts, lost children, aspects that have been buried, lost, that we're not even aware of them. And notice what parts arise in you with that idea. Lost children, so many, some that I don't even know yet, not even aware of. Do you have parts that come up that like, oh, there's something I need to do. I need to find these. I need to heal these. I need to welcome them home. Or others like, this is a problem. I shouldn't have lost children. I shouldn't have this. This should not have happened. And just can we appreciate all the voices that come up for us, whatever comes up around these lost children. And then Kelly describes in her system, this self, this like this maternal love. What is it in you that welcomes these children? What is home for the children in you? And that's kind of all, that's what we've been exploring today is self, these different flavors of self. But it becomes so darn real when it comes with these aspects of us that haven't been welcomed home yet, that are still kind of, maybe they're in the second basement. They're just way down there, they're just hiding, and we're not even aware of them, that there's home here to welcome them. Any final words, Kelly?
Just a massive, massive sense of gratitude that I can see my lost children now. I can see the protectors. I can see them insights and be free from them. Be accepting them as them. I've just got like a strong like image. I see a lot of images of them all just eventually coming back into myself, coming back in and just being one instead of feeling very fragmented. But it'll just be one. The more that they come, more unwelcome.
Thank you, Kelly. What's that like for us if we really let ourselves take that in, the gift that Kelly just offered? I'm pretty much speechless here with what Kelly just shared. Thank you, Kelly. Oh, breath. We only got a few minutes left, and just as we celebrate together, take a breath, and we just notice again, how are you? What's here? What's your precious system, the life inside of you? How is it expressing? Is there still a sense of a space of a party where everything's just kind of parts are here? What parts are here in your space, and what are they arising in? What are the loudest parts? And then we have Debbie and Anne, who we haven't heard from yet. Who would like to go next?
Do you want to go, Anne? It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm fine going.
Okay.
So that was a bit of a shock at the beginning, this kind of judgment part. And I've kind of had to explore that as the meeting goes on. So this quite masculine part that likes to stay distant and aloof and in that clarity, in that huge space of everything. And then clashing with another part that I just wrote some things down because I'm just trying to understand these two parts. And then that clashes with another part that just wants to be involved and get messy and connect and be in community. So they seem one's a loner, and that's what it's been used to being most of its life. It doesn't feel very safe. And one's an explorer that wants to just jump in and do everything. So that was interesting to see those different parts. And so I'm just trying to, but then the you know what Kelly called the maternal part, the awake self that can incorporate all these parts and it and it's unjudging, you know, it can take on anything, no matter how bad the part thinks it is, how hard it thinks it is. At the beginning, it was a bit like, well, how do you accept a hard part? But actually, it's not a hard part. It's just a loner. It's just scared. It's just, and it's got some good qualities. It wants to be clear. It's quite masculine. It has a power. It has a strength. And then at the end, the vision I got as you were taking us into the dive, Sid, which was beautiful, was there were just a ring of children dancing in a circle. And then I think the part that was judged as hard was brought in, and it was uncomfortable and a bit clumsy. And they were kind of children, and that one was like about 15, so it was out of place. But it was enjoying being included in it. I don't know if any of that's clear, because it's not clear to me. It's just something new that's coming on this exploration that I'm still feeling, and after the meeting I'll have to feel into it more.
Yes. This masculine part, and the one that feels the sense of feeling aloof, and it just wants to hold on to the clarity and kind of stay out of the mess. Can we all appreciate this part? That maybe it finds what is it looking for? Does it find safety, control, okayness there? Like, what is it looking for? Like, can we see the beauty in this masculine part and how it's playing? And like, I don't want to get in the mess. I just want to, you know, maybe the way it's doing it, we appreciate that. And then I wish we had lots more time. Unfortunately, we just have a few more minutes. That we could do an hour with just what Anne just shared, because I just want to mention this also. It was so interesting, as Anne describes in her system, that it's more of like the emptiness, the spaciousness, the boundlessness. And Nina, it's such a pleasure being with you. Come back again.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Nina.
Thanks.
Can we find sometimes our parts even kind of obscure or filter the flavor of self that our system can feel? And there's this in it, but it's not a problem. We want to just see the beauty in this. We don't want to resist this masculine part, the one that has found safety. Like wow, the boundlessness of self. I like that. I like some of these qualities of self, but other ones, like, oh wow, this connectedness, like this feminine flow and being in the mush of it. It's like, I don't. And it's like, just let's come another time, man. Let's dive into this one. This is it's so rich. Just thank you so much for that. I'm gonna be quiet now, but I could just go on and on exploring that with you. Thank you. Any final words, Anne?
No, I think that's it. Just nice to see those parts, although a bit scary, because that is a part that I'm scared of, because it has cut off from life before. And it needs to be brought back in. So thank you for letting me explore that. And maybe next time I come on, maybe a bit more, if it's around.
Next time, let's have that be the theme of our group. I mean, just remind me at the beginning, and let's dive into that. And guys, could I indulge for us to do to go for an extra 5 minutes, because I don't want to miss what's here. And Debbie, is that's all right? 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, so to Debbie.
Yeah, I don't think mine share will be that long. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Yeah, somatically, I do feel some tension. Yeah, and I'm aware that I've talked about this before, like that my brain is neurodivergent. I've talked about this, the high sensitivity, maybe on the autistic. I don't know, I mean, somewhere on the spectrum. I mean, but so for me, it's like I have for my system, it's like I really have to take extra good care. Like the stimulation can be a lot for me, like just too much talking. I mean, not too much talking, but a lot of talking or a lot of stimulation, a lot of thoughts. So, like, yeah, so I'm just aware of my systems maybe a little different than a lot of people. So, yeah, I have to like do to calm my system. I need to do different things like, to stimulate the calmness. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, this is what I deal with. I'm not sure if that if people can
It
understand what I'm saying. Oh, thank
beyond.
you.
Like, can we
Yeah.
all find again how I wish I had an advocate like Debbie in my system. The way she's like, this is what I need to do for my parts, for my system. It's sensitive, and we need to do this to take care so it doesn't get overwhelmed. So there's a sense of gentleness, welcoming. Everybody feels at home here. It's like, what care? And like Debbie's a sense of like, sometimes I'm guessing it's a real pain in the butt to have to, I gotta do all
Oh,
this. I
yeah.
gotta do this, right?
Living in this world? Oh, yeah.
I mean,
With all the stimulation.
within this, to take care of her parts, to take care of them that way, that devotion, that care.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. And thank you for like some people resonating with what I said. Because I oftentimes in life feel in my everyday life that yeah, it's like I've learned to put on a mask, kind of like of
Yeah.
parts of me, that appear normal or typical. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you, Debbie. Who knows, as we move towards a close, and I'm wondering, Christina, as a new person, if you have like 2 minutes, I'm wondering if you could hang afterwards. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay. And just the gratitude that's here that Kelly was speaking of, like for this is you, the gifts that you receive from the others of us here, that's what we received from you, the gifts that we received from you today, and just your system could feel that, your parts could feel it. We keep just being you, showing us your parts, the beingness, how life is moving in you. That was the gift. And just thank you so much as we got to co-create this adventure, this play, this exploration, this discovery today. Thank you. Thanks each of you, and come
Thank
back
you.
again.
Yeah, thanks, Sid. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
You.
Bye.
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 Oh.